So we are now going to have our third panel, which is enhancing waterways and watersheds. And our first speaker will be Ben Valks and the Araguaia Biodiversity Corridor. Ben is not an ordinary founder. He's the visionary and everyday force behind the Black Jaguar Foundation, a nonprofit organization with an ambitious mission to restore the Araguaia Biodiversity Corridor in the heart of Brazil. His holistic approach is nothing short of groundbreaking, blending his business background with environmental stewardship, social progress, and economic vitality to forge a sustainable future for nature, communities, and business alike. With contagious enthusiasm and can-do mentality, Ben and the BJFT have set out to accomplish this ambitious yet tangible large mission, a mission of hope and action. Over the next 2 decades, they are embarking on a journey to transform a dream into reality. A dream conceived in 2010 after Ben's successful business ventures in the Middle East and nurtured through countless adventures across the globe. One of his last ones to see a jaguar in the wild made him create the Black Jaguar Foundation. It is no longer the aim of his dreams, but the symbol of his goal is coming through. The Araguaia Biodiversity Corridor will stretch a staggering 2,600 kilometers, breathing life back into 1 million hectares of degraded land. How, you might ask? Through the planting of 1.7 billion native trees, all together with the local landowners, communities, and farmers. Ben Valks reminds us that even in the face of the current climate crisis, with passion, determination, and an unwavering commitment to our planet, we can achieve the extraordinary. It's too late to be a pessimist. Please welcome Ben Valks to the stage.
What a long introduction. Thank you so much, Rob. Thank you very much, all team of the University of Pennsylvania, to be here. We are honored to present our mission, and I feel a little bit delighted today to have seen more, I would say, crazy projects, because maybe many people tell us it's almost impossible what we aim to achieve in 10 or 15 or 20 years. But then when I look at the Great Green Wall, it's all about learning, it's about failing, and then overcoming what we have learned. So here we are with our mission with one project only. This is how it started. As all of you maybe were in business, you have to experience something to make a change in life. And enough of Middle Eastern business in water. One of my dreams was to see a black jaguar in the wild. I tried for 1 week without success. I tried for 4 weeks without success. I was driving a motorbike from the North Pole back to the South Pole. And then I took it a bit serious. I went for 5 months living in the trees with hired jaguar biologists, jaguar hunters, not to shoot the jaguar, but just to lure it. And fortunately, I've been able to see all the animals in the Amazon and the Cerrado, except the black jaguar. But what I've seen as well is the drastic deforestation. Driving for 8-9 hours in one go in an area which was lush forest just years ago. Was gone, not even a bird of prey in the air for an area of longer than 400, say 300 miles. So this made so much impact, I thought, enough about me, time to give back. And if we give back, let's try to do and make a positive impact for Brazil, of course, at first, for South America, and maybe it could set an example for other dying and drying rivers in the world. So to make it clear, it's called the Black Jaguar Foundation, but our mission has nothing to do anymore with animal. It's 100% ecological restoration. Only the project existed on paper. What we aim to do is to only restore the degraded areas of farmers and landowners and indigenous areas where they have an environmental deficit. So to give you an explanation, the entire corridor is 2,600 kilometers long, or for people who are here in America, to give you an idea, it's the same length as from Boston to Miami. It's long compared to the green wall. Now I feel a bit more relaxed. We cannot restore all. There is also a piece of hope that not all degraded. That has an amazing river island of 300 miles long, 50 miles wide. It's purely intact. But all north and south of it has been mostly gone because of deforestation and future impact. So here we go. It explains, this video explains a little bit that we are not the dreamers who think the entire corridor can become green. No, it's very simple. We all have to eat, whether you are a vegetarian, plant-based. You need the soy. You need, maybe some people need meat, but also you need nature. So basically, I will come to explain this further, that this project sets an example that farming and nature really can go hand in hand. Especially if you want to do something in Brazil. That's why I think it's important to explain that the project is in line with the environmental regulation, is in line with the local regulation, because if you try to do something against trying to go against the current, then it's a mission impossible. So what did we do? Because I'm not I'm an environmentalist, but I'm not a forest engineer or a scientist, but I learned a lot to get and prepare very well before you start something big, whether it's in business or in this kind of project. So we invested over 5 years in scientific research, and 2 key elements is to make an analysis of the total mapping. So we partnered with WRI Brazil, and they mapped the entire 10.4 million hectares. So now we know 8 levels of information. We know which areas are degraded, which areas are, according to the law, have a deficit, and which areas are close to towns, etc., etc. This was homework number 1. Homework number 2 took a bit even longer. We did a full cost-benefit analysis. So I think that's nice for other, mega projects, for people to know. I think homework research phase is key. Because you cannot just go out to the world and say, let's try something small, even though we are failing and we are making mistakes. But I think it's very important to have a base to work from. So this is to give you some idea of the online mapping platform. And the outcome, we did a full cost-benefit analysis, or as you can call it, a green capital study by University of Sao Paulo. The seven scientists from the University of Sao Paulo and from the University of Illinois. Amazing knowledge together, and now we have identified what is the real cost of the project and what is the real, I would say, income for the planet, and what is the environmental deficit, and how. And as we learned all today, restoration is not, yes, planting a tree is maybe one piece, but it's all about the total ecosystem of impact. So our project, we can call it a social environmental project. Or we can call it today a social economic environmental project. Because if we don't do it, I mean, we are working in the heart of Brazil. It's in the heart of the soy production of the world. So we are not going to the farms and say, stop all your production. No, because we need to eat. And I'm sure that even whatever we consume today has a link with the Cerrado of the Amazon today. So what we do is we work hand in hand with the farmer and with small landowners. But before going there, what we have analyzed in the cost-benefit study is that in time, the project will employ over 21,000 people in the economy of restoration. It will, right now, we already work with 73, of course, native species. 2 years ago it was 30, 40, today 73, and who knows, it might increase. But I think 73 has a really wonderful base for us as humans to plant or restore, and after 2, 3, 4 years, it's amazing. We are very fortunate in this part of the world how life is coming back, but I will show you that. So in fact, it's a project about climate, it's a project about biodiversity, it's a project about water, It's a project about job creation. And the number of the 17.1 billion avoided cost for the planet does not even include the element of water. And to give you an idea, there is one huge dam at the end of the river, the Tucuruí Dam, and this dam provides electricity for 30% or more than 30% of the north of Brazil. Is it needed, the project? I think yes, because what you see happening of the climate crisis becomes very tangible. It's not just far away, a disaster in the Sahel. No. Just 4 or 5 months ago, in the high peak of the dry season, it was the second time ever that you could cross the Araguaia River by car. And to give you an idea, normally in the low season, dry season, the water levels are 5 to 6 meters. In the wet season, 11 meters of water, 12 meters of water. So there are elements where you can drive by car. That's a wake up. So is it needed? Yes, in all aspects. This gives you some of the impacts of the full Green Capital study. It explains that, okay, out of the 10.4 million hectares, we will restore 1 million hectares of private land. And we know the sequestration of carbon, we know the reduction in soil erosion, the number of jobs, and the number of municipalities we will work with. Today we work with 7 municipalities. You might think it's quite small. Originally I am from Holland. Maybe my heart is in Brazil, but one municipality, where we are right now in Santana do Araguaia, is quarter the size of the Netherlands. So don't get confused by the number of municipalities, only 112, because it's a huge, huge piece of land. So in total, we aim to work with 13,000 properties. Small, medium, and large. So how does it work in practical? Because I don't think maybe many of you will realize that Brazil has either the best or one of the best environmental regulations in the world. Do you know? So do you know that 25% each landowner has to preserve 25%, 30, up to 50, up to even 80% of his land for nature? Which is, I think, amazing. In Europe, they're battling for each 1%. We are not saying that it is enforced maybe the best. It could be enforced better, but it's already there. So what we do is we go to small, medium, and large farmers, and we analyze their land, and where they have the part of land which needs to be restored by law, according to the Forest Code, which was set up in 1965, determines whether they meet the Forest Code or not. If they have a deficit in the Forest Code, we come in and we help restore that part of their land. In this way, the farmer or the landowner becomes very proud. He becomes the owner of the new forest. If we don't do it, he might get a fine in the future. But as he sees today the impact already on the quality of his soil, because every year he has to get more minerals, more fertilizers for his land, because the quality of the soil is going down. Because at one point, if so much has been deforested in the past, the water levels are going down. So I'm not a forest engineer, but that's quite obvious. And it costs the farmers. So now we try to become like a real add-on, like a partner, a win-win with farmers, with nature. So we are not how we do it. So as we heard all today, it all starts with communities. We might be a Brazilian organization, bringing in the knowledge, building all the nurseries, bringing all the technology, but we do it with the local people. And I think it's amazing that, I will explain to you later, that we really carry out all the 17 steps of restoration, to see smiles on people's faces, to give jobs to people who now start to collect seeds for us, to give them a better income than they had before. So actually, it's a win-win-win. Maybe it's super difficult with all the challenges we have, but if you just see the proudness of the people we employ, directly or indirectly, yes, it's an example for the future. So communities is one, definitely landowners, the protagonist of this story. So as I explained, we offer financial and environmental regulation for their APPs, like in English, the permanent preservation areas and the legal reserves. So they become the owner. So we are not, as other organizations, talking about millions and millions of hectares. No, we aim to restore 1 million hectares in the coming 15 to 20 years. What we learned is our value of quality restoration. Maybe we are a bit slower, but so be it. Because right now our survival rate is up to 90%. And we learned that in the middle of nowhere, in fim do mundo, in Brazil, sometimes we have to create and build our own infrastructure. Sometimes there's no electricity. Sometimes there are no bridges. And I can go on and on and on. And still we want to also be a good employer. So what we did is, now our core value is quality restoration. If people are not supporting that element and they want to go cheap, then we say, muito obrigado, até amanhã. So this is our 17 steps we developed. For forest engineers, it's always these steps, but now we make it a bit more visible to the outside world to make it more transparent of all the 17 steps. So these 17 steps are required to bring back healthy forests. And again, it starts with community, it starts with building partnership with the farmers, and also to get the trust of the farmers. Because keep in mind, we are coming on their land. We have more papers and regulations and documents of their farm. So they really have to trust us. And sometimes they are like, oh, are you not French? Or are you not from France, from DiCaprio? Or, because they are really a little bit, it's all about trust. So fortunately, we have now built this trust with the first 5, then 10, now almost 20 farmers, and now it spins off. So second is farmer partnerships, fire brigade, environmental education, mapping and validation, because it looks very easy to have the right maps from satellites. But before we go, if you have a 5 months rainy season, the beautiful maps we have developed from our mapping team, which is Clarissa, which is amazing, yes. But then you have to go and inspect the land, because maybe this brown land is not normal land to use, maybe it's rock. Or this same piece of land is flooded in the rainy season with 2 meters of water. At the same time, we take care of the biodiversity planning. So we analyze which trees were in the surrounding forest. We make a study for that, and then we know which trees we will plant, which native trees we will put back in the planting season. Scientific partnerships is the key, evidence-based restoration. We have our own nurseries. We have our own seed collection collective. We used to buy seeds from wonderful seed cooperatives, but then we discovered we need so many. So we set up our own seed collection cooperative. It's amazing because now 65 people are working, they're trained, they have so much knowledge. And for the first time, they earn a bit more than average. And they help us with quality seeds, because the more quality the seeds have, the better chance the little seed becomes a healthy tree. So it's a win-win. Fence construction, because keep in mind, we talk about farmers, and some of the farmers are 100% agro, like soy or corn, but some of them also have a lot of cattle, and we don't want the cattle to stamp over the little trees. Planting the logistics is a huge job. Planting the trees and the seeds. You see, many platforms talk about, oh, we will only plant these trees and we go. But now we show you the complexity of all these 17 steps. If we don't take care of all these 17 steps, there's no intact forest. 3 years maintenance, up to 20 years of monitoring, and fire prevention. So, maybe not easy, but this is how we do it. And we are happy to be here today to show you some of the developments. This is our latest nursery in Santana de Araguaia. And we do this together. We got the land from the local municipality. So the local municipality is also proud. Like, hey, we are bringing a Brazilian non-profit in our community, partnering with the farmers. So they also become proud because it shows that things are possible. And this has a capacity of 500,000 native seedlings per year. And I think we are proud to be a good employer. Last season we had over 122 full-time people in the field and another 65, so over 175 people, compared to the thousands of employees in the other initiatives. Maybe it's small, but I think it's important that we have smiles and that we have learned the way. And if we ever want to go to 21,000 employees, then this is the way forward. Because I'm sure other projects either in Pakistan, China, Middle East are complex, but I can guarantee that Brazil is also high on the list of complexity in terms of legislation, in terms of distances, in terms of realizing and getting things done. But we are proud to do that, and that we are able to start to build more and more communities. How do we get it done? Although you can see us as the work bees, so we are more the implementers and the real doers, and we have a tiny team of fundraisers and marketing. So we have to learn on that, we have to improve on that, but still we are able to have over 100 plus corporate partners, and now we start to get bigger partnerships. But we are proud to have one of the partners is, for example, Caixa Federal Bank. It's one of the two federal banks in Brazil, and Victor from Brazil, and he knows that if the Federal Bank of Brazil becomes a partner, then the due diligence and the governance must be tipped up. So this shows some of the sponsor partners, this shows some of the farmer partners and the institutional partners. I had to make it short, so I try to keep it short as well. This gives you an idea how we partner with the Caixa Federal Bank. And it's not in the billions. We didn't go to Jeff Bezos yet, but we want to create a healthy pack that we are ready for Mr. Bezos. And I think such partnerships show that we are learning to scale up in the next future. Then we had, in terms of media, more and more media is approaching us, and I think one of the largest was a special report 2 months ago in Reuters. It was an investigative report, so anyhow, I learned that in media, people don't like amazing positive stories, they like disaster. So I tried to convince this reporter for 4 months to make something positive out of it, but it became a neutral, scientific almost document of 3,000 words. I think you can look it up. The story is replanting the Amazon could help save the world's climate. Here's why it's hard to do. It's definitely hard, but also it showed, hey, there is possibility. You know, and what I learned today from the doctor here today is it can only be a success after many failings. Don't think you can set up one of the longest biodiversity corridors on the planet without failing. So we have struggles in the team with funding, with logistics, but seeing you here today gives me more energy. Seeing, for example, Tony Hiss, I came in yesterday and I came up with a suggestion maybe we should all partner together and go for the full budget with 10 organizations. So I don't know if Mr. Tony is still here, but he said this morning, I'm in for it, let's do it. So this gives energy. This will not save all the problems, the world's problem, but I think it sets an example of positivity for all the future generations. So we are now aiming to complete the second million tree, then we jump to 10 and then 100. And by the time that we have reached 10 million trees, then we are ready for Mr. Bezos, because we have to be ready to scale. I have no idea if this is being watched by potential donors, philanthropic partners, but I do hope so, because for our next planting seasons, we are still around, we don't talk in billions here, we still only need $6 million, but with these 6 million, we can make magic happen. So here is where we are. From the second million, we will grow to 10, and from 10, we will grow to 100. Thank you so much, and let's make amazing mega impact together. Thank you.
What a beautiful presentation. Thank you, Mr. Valks. Next, it is my pleasure to welcome Mr. Marshall Plumley, who currently serves as the Regional Program Manager for the Upper Mississippi River Restoration Program for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in Rock Island District. Mr. Plumley provides leadership and strategic direction for the program, which includes 24 ongoing habitat rehabilitation and enhancement projects in various stages of planning, design, and construction, as well as operation, the nation's first large river long-term resource monitoring effort in collaboration with the USGS, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri. For over 20 years, Mr. Plumley has provided project management, planning expertise to U.S. Army Corps of Engineers projects across the nation. Let's please welcome him to the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. It really is a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon. The learning I've had a chance to do just in the last 5 hours or so has been tremendous, and I appreciate all the speakers and the panelists. I don't know if it was the intention of this symposium to foster hope, but that's a word that comes to mind, that's been coming to mind all morning to me as we've heard these great presenters talk about the work that's being done globally, is the hope that I have for my children and my friends and my family and as a citizen of the world. This is tremendous work that's going on. Just to give you a little bit of context, the Upper Mississippi River Basin, which is the area that we work in within UMRR, that's the acronym I'm going to use from here on out. We work in about a 1,200 mile space from north to south, from St. Paul, Minnesota, down south of St. Louis, Missouri. We also work in the Illinois River up to Chicago. And along that system, we have a series of locks and dams that provide commercial navigation to ship bulk commodities both into the region and globally to the world. And it is that use for inland navigation, along with a variety of other uses. There's about 35 million people that take drinking water from this part of the world, from the river itself. We have a large collection of fish and wildlife refuges along the system. We have nuclear power plants. We have coal-fired power plants. We have about every type of use. About a third of the floodplain is levied for agricultural purposes. Just about every use you can imagine that a society would expect of a river system, we've placed on this resource. But it also supports one of the most globally diverse set of species in the world. About 40% of the migratory waterfowl in North America use this corridor as a corridor, making their way from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico. Additionally, about half of North America's aquatic species utilize this resource and call this resource home. And so it is both nationally significant in terms of navigation and as well as the ecosystem itself. And so that's why we're dedicated to working there. And the fun facts that I have on this slide, this program's been around for 37 years, but really the authorization of this program by Congress in 1986 was the outcome of something. It wasn't the beginning of something. It was the outcome of nearly 50 years of conservation work by private citizens, by biologists and ecologists along the river, starting in the early 1940s, to raise awareness of these multiple uses. We heavily rely on this system for navigation purposes, but it was that coalition of conservation-minded folks and those interested in the other uses of the river and needs of the river that really drove the conversation regionally and ultimately nationally to authorize this ecosystem restoration work so that it would complement the work that we do in terms of navigation and the other uses that we place upon the river. And so the program itself is really focused on ecosystem restoration. It has two components: habitat rehabilitation and enhancement projects. I use HREPs for short. And then long-term resource monitoring, systemically understanding what's happening to the system over time, both as a result of our projects, but as a result of all the things that influence the system. Those things are pretty varied. Altered water levels as a result of our operations of the navigation system, those dams that maintain depth for navigation change water levels. Climate change is certainly a factor. What we see in this part of the world right now is more water more of the time. If there's a takeaway from what's happening, that's it. I've already mentioned navigation. Invasive species this is a corridor that connects the Great Lakes with the Gulf of Mexico. And so virtually every invasive species from any of those regions finds a home in this part of the world. We also have influences from the watershed, a vast watershed that influence this. And what you see here on this graphic is the cross-section of an area of the river up north in the northern part from 1890. And it's essentially that comparison of water versus at that time, wetlands, forested wetlands, islands, those sorts of things. With the lock and dam system going into place in the late 1930s, most of this lower part of the pool itself was impounded, and so those side channels, those wetlands, those island habitats were essentially all submerged. And what was left, islands suffered significant erosion and degradation over time. So a lot of the work that we do is combating that significant alteration in the landscape. This program, and the folks who hear me talk about this frequently hear this all the time, but the only reason that this program is successful and the only reason it continues to function well after 37 years is because of a partnership that we have. This isn't the Corps of Engineers, this isn't the Army coming in and doing this work. We have a vast array of state and federal partners that work on this, local communities, friends and support groups of the refuge lands along the river. They make this possible. They make the restoration work. They make the long-term monitoring that occurs happen. So it's not just one agency that's making this work possible. And in that time, we've, as I mentioned, long-term resource monitoring. We were the first in the nation to begin a systemic data collection on the entire system so that we could understand what those changes that were occurring, so that we could understand really what the river was all about. In that time, in that 37 years, we've completed 62 restoration projects touching about 120,000 acres. We currently have another 24 in process, and that's another 70,000 acres that we're working on. Funding. I wouldn't be a good program manager if I didn't talk a little bit about money. This has been our history since the beginning. How much are we seeing in terms of appropriations from the U.S. Congress? And while money is important, this is a reflection, in my mind, this continued upward progression is a reflection of that partnership. It's the work that's actually being put on the ground, the restoration that's actually being affected in the environment, and the learning that is done through the science and monitoring work that we do. Typically within the Corps of Engineers, if we don't execute and get done what we say we're gonna get done, money doesn't continue to follow. And so to me, this upward trend towards a $90 million a year program is a reflection of that confidence that they have in this partnership and what we do. And that's a reflection across 30 years of whoever's in control of Congress or whoever's in the White House. And so that confidence, that trust that we've been able to build really cuts across party lines and really isn't influenced a whole lot by politics, which is rare these days. To give you a little bit of an idea of the type of work that we do along the river corridor, what you can see here is just a collection of some of the projects that we work on. The map there in the middle, which is very, very tiny, all those places, those dots along the map are places where we have completed active construction on a project. These projects range anywhere between 500 to 10,000 acres in size. It really depends on what the immediate needs are in the area. Starting on the top left there, a lot of the projects that we work with are to restore natural water level regimes so that we can get back emergent aquatic vegetation that we've lost in particular areas. In some cases, in certain parts of the river, emergent vegetation, or excuse me, submerged vegetation is limited, and so we work to improve the water quality and clarity to reestablish those vegetation beds. On the left center, you can see some island protection there and a place called Beaver Island. A lot of those islands that have continued to erode over time as a result of prop wash and wind wave action across those large open water expanses requires intervention to prevent that process from continuing to happen. On the lower left, we do, across the 1,300 miles, we probably plant 500,000 trees every year. That is combined with forest management techniques, in a lot of cases going in and thinning out existing forest stands that are reaching an age at which they're no longer reproducing. And so there's a variety of techniques in forest restoration. Probably the most compelling there at the top right, you can see, I alluded to it in that graphic that showed the difference between the 1890 section of the river and the current section. A lot of what we see today is this large open expanse of water. Wind-driven waves will resuspend sediment. It's a terrible place for habitat. And so we will go in and we will put in the structure, kind of the bones, so to speak, of islands that then use the river's natural forces and sediment to recreate those islands. And in most cases, we don't need to revegetate what's there. The seed bank is still intact, and so we see a reemergence of native vegetation. In the middle on the right there, we have gotten a lot better at beneficially using dredge material from our navigation projects, as opposed to just disposing of it on lands. We use it, we integrate it into our restoration work, whether that's island building or wetland creation. And then the bottom right in the center, we do some hard infrastructure, building spillways, gravity gates to manipulate water levels in certain locations because the system is highly altered. There's just places where we can't, we need to do a structural intervention. In some cases, we do put pumps in as well to restore natural water levels. In the northern part of our region, in the St. Paul District Corps of Engineers area, we have several projects ongoing. You can see there the ones in blue are in feasibility right now. We've got one in design and one in construction. We actually completed 3 last year, 3 projects. And as you can see just here from some of the photos, it really is the people who make this happen. That's a collection of folks from various agencies, local friends groups. It's really a cross-section of those who use the river. In my part of the world where I'm located at in Rock Island District, we have a number of projects in planning right now and several in construction. And next I'm just going to give you a quick 1-minute tour of a piece of a restoration project. So it looks like a big pile of rocks, right? I know that's what some of you are thinking. Like, it's the Corps of Engineers. We like to use rock. What's really important, so the purpose of that is, one, to protect the island. It's immediately adjacent to the navigation channel, so we have 15 barge tows working within hundreds of feet of that area. We have recreation traffic, eroding the banks, those sorts of things. But what's important, and what you can't see about those piles of rocks, is that underneath the surface of the water, we have a lot smaller rocks. And those smaller rocks are wonderful habitat for mussels. And that project actually completed construction in 2021. The next spring, and this is not even a full year, we have mussel colonization of that habitat. Now, mussels aren't incredibly speedy creatures, so the fact that we have this response almost immediately is an excellent sign. And then earlier this year, or actually in July, we went out and did a formal survey. And we're already over 20 species, and the abundance is skyrocketing. Well, why is this important? And we're talking about mega everything. The mussels in this pool, this part of the world, there's about 300 mussels within a 15-mile radius of this project area. And those 300 million mussels process enough water. It's essentially the equivalent of 4 of the largest wastewater treatment plants in the United States every day. So when we talk about ecosystem goods and services, and what do these critters provide to us, they do as much to clean the water more than what we can do in terms of our projects. But if we can create the right conditions and restore the right conditions, the water quality benefits just from this one little piece of this project help tremendously. Down in the St. Louis district, the very southern part of this area, again, we have a number of other projects ongoing. What's unique about this part of the world is this is where the lock and dam system stops, and so we get into an open river free-flowing condition. And so the types of restoration work that we do is different. This is just some examples of some of the emergent and submergent vegetation plantings that we do at these project sites once we've done the other physical construction restoration around the site. So the second part of this program, it's not just building habitat, and this goes back to before the program was authorized. There was this recognition that there was a significant lack of understanding of how the system functioned, how ecologically it performed, that made it very difficult for partners to manage the system, and for us to even contemplate what restoration should and would look like in the future. And so Congress, upon recommendation by this conservation partnership, made it on an equal footing as the restoration, the physical construction work, the long-term resource monitoring of that work and the system. And so we do that in partnership primarily with the USGS in the 5 states. We actually have 5 field stations and pools along the river that we do systemic monitoring of water quality, aquatic vegetation, and fisheries. It's the longest data set of any of those 3 items anywhere in the world. And that gives us a tremendous amount of power to understand what's been happening with the system over time, what happens when our projects go online and start to produce the benefits that we hope that they will. It also helps us think about what are the impacts and changes of climate change over the last, at least 10 to 15 years, but within that time frame. And so it's a very powerful tool. Another element of this long-term resource monitoring is systemic land cover, land use, and bathymetry and topography data collection across the entire system. So we have, essentially across the system, we can see what's going on below the surface of the water and above, and how that's changing over time. We collect that data about every 10 years. So that helps us understand, outside of our projects, what's happening along the floodplain and along the river. Additionally, we periodically conduct habitat needs assessments. We take all that information, synthesize it, and use it to help us determine where we're going to do management actions in the future as a partnership. We've developed a number of indicators at the system scale that help us measure that success of our projects and our programs over time. And then finally, having that data set available to us and that research, it's not just monitoring over 30 years, it's over 600 peer-reviewed journal articles using that data, using that research to help guide the work that we do. And as I said earlier, this ability to understand what's the status of the system and what have the trends been over time really allow us to then target our restoration work as we go forward and understand how our projects are going to respond within that system. Something that I think is pretty unique for us because we've been building these projects. Literally, the first one we built was in 1987. We have both engineering and design. We have a handbook, essentially the engineering and design lessons learned from all those projects, and there were failures there, but there's been a lot of success. There's also ecological lessons learned incorporated in that document so that every time we start a new project in planning, we're building upon what we've learned over 35 years of actually constructing things in the river over time. And so that status and trends report, again, is critical to helping us move forward into the future. And so I guess in conclusion, I would say, some of the fundamental reasons why this program has been successful. Again, that partnership that helps make all this work happen. The table that we sit around is very broad. We get a lot of input from river users, folks who live along the river, as well as the agencies. It's not just a agency-driven process. Our ability to get projects on the ground, physically constructed, and doing what we said they were going to do is a big reason why we're still around. And then finally, that ability to learn, that constant assessing and reevaluating the work that we've done over time in this system allows us to do better and better projects every time, I think. And that's a great reason folks look to us when they're looking, when folks are looking to start either monitoring efforts or restoration efforts on large rivers. They usually come to us and we're able to share some of those great successes. That's what I have, and it's been very good to be with you.
Such a great project and informative. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Yongjun, who is a landscape architect who has been leading diverse design projects in major cities around the world for the past 20 years. He was the leading designer of Korea's representative Gwanghwamun Square and participated in Seoul's Yongjun stream restoration, and Han River Renaissance renovation and the Four Major Rivers project. Drawing from his diverse backgrounds, Yongjun passionately advocates for the active role of landscape architecture in addressing complex urban issues. His interests span from the aesthetics of public spaces to encompassing ecology, society, economy, environment, and race, seeking innovative approaches through collaborative efforts to effectively resolve urban challenges. He will represent the Four Major Rivers Restoration Project.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm a landscape designer from South Korea. I participated in Four Major River Restoration Project as a member of a master plan design team. This project was mentioned by UN Environment Program as an example of Korean government green growth in 2009. Nevertheless, there have been many controversies due to environmental and water quality issues since construction. This debate is still a major issue in our country, and I hope through this symposium, we will share the pros and cons of a project and create a progress discussion. The area of our country is 10 million hectares. The population is approximately 51 million. 70% of the country is made up of mountains and rivers. A characteristic of a river has high coefficient of flow fluctuation. This is because seasonal changes in rainfall are large, and the average slope of a river is relatively large. So rainfall is quickly concentrated in the river. So we have had continuous problem with droughts and flood. And pollutants come from factories and livestock farms near rivers have also been a major issue. These became the background of this project. This is a comprehensive pan-governmental project planned and completed during the Lee Myung-bak administration. It covers 4 major rivers that run through the entire country. The total length of the project is 1,052 kilometers. This project aims to restore the Han River, Nakdong River, Geum River, Yeongsang River to provide water security, flood control, and ecosystem vitality. It is intended to fundamentally prevent natural disasters like flood and droughts, protect the environment, and promote history and cultural tourism. The project aims to create jobs and further economic growth, thereby broadening the horizon of a country's green growth. This is the largest river restoration project ever in Korean history. I believe one of the reasons why this project was able to proceed is because the Cheonggaecheon project from 2004-2006 and the Hangang Renaissance project from 2006-2007 were successful, making everyone from politicians to ordinary citizens aware of the importance of restoring green spaces and rivers. This project follows the 4 policy directions below: proactive response to climate change, diversified means of securing water resources, paradigm shift in flood management, utilization of river areas as multipurpose spaces. From those, the government created 4 core objectives. First, securing water resources. According to estimates from Korean government and international organizations, Korea is facing a possible water shortfall of 800 million cubic meters by 2011 and 1 billion cubic meters by 2016. Therefore, securing 1.3 billion cubic meters of water will strengthen Korean capacity to respond to future water shortage and droughts caused by climate change. Second, preventing flood disaster. Flood disasters are occurring more frequently in Korea due to climate change. Preemptive measures, including control over 200 years periodic flooding, are being implemented as a part of a project. The ministry has begun dredging sediments, strengthening old levees, and building small dams, securing 920 million cubic meters in flood control capacity. Third, improving water quality and restoring ecosystems. By 2012, mainstream water quality will improve to level 2 with biochemical oxygen demand of less than 3 ppm. Through expansion sewage treatment facilities and establishment of green algae reduction facilities. Moreover, to rehabilitate the ecosystem, the ministry is attempting making ecological rivers, create wetlands, and relocate farmland. Fourth, creating multi-purpose spaces for local communities. Raising income levels in Korea have also created a greater demand for leisure space on the nation's rivers, and people need more space for cultural and sports programs along the four rivers. Accordingly, we planned various water-friendly spaces and tried to revitalize the local economy through this. The project was quickly planned and implemented as a comprehensive pan-governmental project because of strategic project of President Lee Myung-bak. The project systematically had approached its objectives of restoring rivers while achieving regional development. As a comprehensive public project, the program included a variety of plans submitted by several ministries, but coordinated by Office National River Restoration under the Ministry of Land, Transport and Maritime Affairs. The budgets of the three government agencies were set according to their roles, and the total cost amounted to $18.4 billion when compared to annual budget of $250 billion in 2010. A huge amount of money was invested in this project. This shows in details the main civil works and construction costs. The whole project was divided into 95 construction contracts, including fast-track method. The entire project was completed in 2012. It just took a little over 3 years. Since most construction works were carried out within the rivers, measures to deal with flooding during the rainy seasons were included within the schedule. The government created 7 actions plan before proceeding this project. This includes land compensation for farmers within the project area, committee composition and evaluation method for environmental assessment, and minimizing the impact of suspended sediment, planned for intervention against oil spillage during construction. In addition, the participation rate of local companies was mandated to revitalize the local economy. In details in implemented plan, a total 500 million cubic meters of sediments were dredged. Profit was expected from the sale of the dredged soil, but performance was not good due to sluggish construction economy and the burden of logistics costs. This photo shows before and after dredged rivers. Although the capacity of water has increased, flood risk has been reduced, we still have environmental concern about sandbank and plant communities has disappeared in some places. 16 weirs and 3 dams were newly built within 4 major rivers. Through this, flood control capacity was expanded by 920 million cubic meters. Around the mainstream, the aerial risk flooding has decreased by 93% of flood risk area. And 16 weirs are equipped with small hydropower generation facilities. The annual power generation is approximately 271 gigawatt hours. It is enough for 250,000 people. Actually, we don't have any energy resources, such as the oil and gas. So it has the effect of replacing 454,000 barrels of crude oil imports, and also reducing 183,000 tons of carbon dioxide. And some weirs and its surrounding area have become local landmarks with a beautiful landscape. And local government has developed long-term plans to further revitalize the local area, and some plans are in progress. In addition, bicycle paths were, as on a green transportation, bicycle paths were built along the four rivers to connect the entire country. The length of the completed bicycle path extended about 1,757 kilometers. Although it is highly evaluated by those who traveled by bicycle, safety issues some section, and maintenance costs are also being raised as a problem. To improve water quality, government applied specific plans to each rivers. For example, in the case of Yongjun River, environmental facilities such as sewage and water waste treatment facilities and sewer pipe has been expanded and advanced. And also many of ecological detention pond, agricultural pond, and ecological wetland were created. The role of landscape architect was find major ecological and scenic points of the four rivers and distinguish development and conservation areas. We suggested ecological spaces and embankment forests within the riverbank, and waterfront amenities were planned in connection with the local cities. Additionally, to enhance regional connectivity, we created bicycle paths and riverside walking paths. In my opinion, landscape architecture proposals were considered as a follow-up to civil engineering work. So as a result, it was difficult to apply all eco-friendly strategies. For the economic effect, at the beginning of the plan, many benefits were expected. Although there was significant employee effect during the construction period, the result was disappointing compared to initial expectation. This project began and was completed during the Lee Myung-bak administration. As the largest river restoration project, it has become an issue of various aspects such as environmental, economy, and political. So there was 5 governmental audits, and the audit result was very different depending on the government. The biggest issue is demolition or preservation of weirs regarding environmental issues. Although there have been problems with green algae, before the completion of the 4 major rivers, environmentalist groups have raised that the problem green algae in the river basin has continued for the last 10 years as weirs blocked the flow of water. This debate has begun going on for over a decade, and opinions are divided even among experts in the same field. I think the debate has been focused on the opening, demolition, or retaining weirs, rather than discussing how to utilize weirs and improve the river ecological environment at the same time. And recently, large-scale flood damage occurred in other rivers that were not part of the 4 major river project. This led to another debate in the political world about the 4 major projects. Summer flooding and green algae problem continue to lead to controversy over 4 major rivers projects every year. I believe that it is more meaningful to evaluate this project after the tributary restoration project implemented and completed. Actually, we planned to start to make a master plan of the tributary restoration project right after the 4 major rivers restoration project was completed. However, the government changed and the project did not proceed. So we are losing time in a long argument. So we must stop the debate and move on to the next step, tributary restoration project. Thank you.
So now we'll transition to the panel session. Can I have the panelists once again come up and the speakers? Thank you, speakers, for another excellent round of talks. These three projects are very complex, and I hope we ask some really probing questions about these projects. So I'm going to start, Kyra, at the end. Do you have a question?
Yes. Thank you, presenters, for sharing your projects with us all. My question was for Ben. And
What?
yeah.
Sound check.
Hello?
Is it?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. It's for Ben, and you talked about the influence of being able to be out on the landscape and seeing the deforestation that is happening. So my question is, how useful is it for your project and your program to have decision makers and funders be out on the landscape with you in terms of, I guess, the support of the project, or how important is it to be out there with you? Do you get the question? So how important is it to have decision makers or funders see, I guess, the impact that your restoration projects are happening, or the negative impacts that are happening?
Thank you for the question. I think it's key because we can have wonderful presentations, we can have wonderful videos, but the best is the proof. People visiting, people planting, people meeting the local seed collectors, people walking through the nurseries, and most importantly, that people can walk through an area which has been restored just 2 or 3 years ago. So in the areas where we restore, we are very fortunate. It's very rich, and within 3 to 4 years, most of the biodiversity is coming back. Trees grow sometimes in 2 years. You cannot believe it. That's why it's good that you asked this question. People have to see it to believe it. Sometimes a little seedling of 30 centimeters becomes a tree of 4 to 5 meters in 2 years. I'm not saying it's everywhere. So that's why we hope to build a visitor center and guest houses. I'm sure they're going to be basic, but along the river for people to come and see. And definitely we invite the panelists of today's symposium as well to come and see.
Thank you.
Keith?
Yeah, this would probably go to both Marshall and Yongjun. Both of your projects are really fascinating, and they really focus on the river and the issues and challenges that are along the river, both from a water quality and a habitat perspective. But we also all know that water, what's happening in the watersheds that feed into those rivers sets the stage for all that. So do you have authorization or the ability to go up into the watershed and do interventions in the watershed to help the river?
So the UMRR program is authorized only on the floodplain of the Mississippi and the Illinois River. So our footprint that we can work in is relatively narrow. And to your question about working in the watershed, so the Corps of Engineers does have other authorities that allow it to work in watersheds with local communities on ecosystem restoration type projects. We don't have a comprehensive watershed type. We have some study authorities, but we don't have a construction authority necessarily. So what we try to do as a program is when we're looking for future projects, in addition to what we know about the river, we also try to collaborate with the local watersheds that drain directly into our project area, see what their priorities are, see if there's any, opportunities that might exist if there's some investments being made in a particular watershed that we might be able to build off of. We try to work with those groups and those agencies to align those efforts together. That's about the best we can do. The other part that we do is the data and information that we collect about the main stem is a reflection of what's happening in the watershed, and so we do try very intentionally to work with folks in the watershed to help them understand why what is happening on the main stem of the river involves them in positive ways and in sometimes negative ways. And so that's how we try to interact with those folks.
Actually, I understand. I didn't know fully understand, but what I mean actually, compared to other project, 청계천 project, 청계천 restoration project, Han Renaissance project, was the leader is landscape architect. So we made the section, and then give the section to the civil engineering to making the watershed. But for major rivers, it's too large to determine for us. So actually, the civil engineers decided to make the section for the to get some water quantity. So that's the big issue for our team. So actually, that's my answer.
Emmanuel.
I have a question. First, I wanna say also, like Marshall, that I really agree with your note on how positive it is to be in an event like this. How much hope it gives to hear about all those incredible projects. And thank you again for all your presentations. Then Ben, I had a question for you. In the guidelines, in the global standard that we're developing, or that we developed for nature-based solutions, on one side, we emphasize the fact that projects are, although we have those guidance, those tools, operational tools, very often interventions are context-based or context-dependent, whether it's geographic context, ecosystem context, and ecological context, and so forth. This is on one side. But on the other side, we very much encourage replicating successful things that are happening in one place in order to increase the scale and the importance, the impact, the positive impact that an intervention has. So you mentioned that you're working on with 8 municipalities that are quite large. So I was wondering, if it was easy or if it was difficult first to reach out to those municipalities and have them engaged in the project, and then if you replicated what you had done with the others, to engage them.
Yes, thank you. Definitely, it all starts with the first municipality, because coming in as an NGO gives a lot of distrust. And I think what we are doing now is building on 3 levels: on municipal level, on state level, and federal. So it has helped us a lot that we are working the relation with the municipality and with the Secretary of Environment with the municipality, that they already have heard from us on state level. And it has helped that the Minister of Environment of Brazil has also invited us. So it's all part of building pieces to get this trust. And then scalability from the first to the third was, I think, the most difficult. And now it's all about what we've heard today is creating trust, doing what we promise. And we will be ready. Yes, I think the pillar of restoration capacity is, I think, ready to scale up. The pillar of land raising or of partnership with farmers is ready. Then we need community, so we are ready. So now it's a matter of funding, which and that would maybe bring us to the next level of scaling up. So people actually, once they see we are with Brazil, we are with the municipality, we are with the farmers, we are with the local people, yes, it's a win-win. first, it sounds almost too good to be true for them, and that's why they are hesitant. They're very hesitant. But now that we start to build, we are saying we have only 7 or 8, and there are 112 to go. So we have a big step. We have big ways to move forward. I think we have made the start. So definitely it's a model to scale.
So, kind of two-parter here. Ben, you and I started talking at lunch about, what's needed to analyze what's appropriate, and to Emanuele's point, what the context, sort of specificity of any sort of solution, and trees specifically, tree species in any given place. You need to account for so much in order to increase that survivability rate in any of your nature-based solutions. How much does each tree cost? From the 1 to 20, over those steps. Just out of curiosity.
Very simple. 4 years or 5 years ago, we thought it was only $2 or $3.
$2 or $3.
No, that's what we thought. So, because you have to learn.
Yeah.
And we have the most wonderful example today from the Great Green Wall. He says, if you don't make mistakes, you can never grow. So I made a mistake, maybe to make a partnership for way below the real cost. Because we want to make sure that we also can do the maintenance. But if you do the maintenance, you have to go out there in the field at least 2 times per year. You have to do it manually. There are no robots or no drones who can analyze the capping from the little trees. So now we put the cost as an estimation of around $8. And maybe it will go up because also it has been inflation. And now we learn the hard way. We have to face this difficulty, but I think we are almost future-proof.
So future-proofing, right? So safeguarding these solutions, right? You've done your cost-benefit analysis. You understand that. And looking at the numbers over the day, I'm kind of like torn about how sort of optimistic I am coming in today, like going through today, and how sort of pessimistic. I'm like, these numbers are not matching up. Like, we are undervaluing this work. Like, we are not getting the budget that we need to actually do this at scale, and we are valuing other things above what is needed in this space when it comes to nature-based solutions. So safeguarding what we do invest in when we're talking about nature-based solutions, right? Nature's only a solution until it's not, until itself is impacted by climate change, right? Wondering, and there are going to be different stakeholder groups and different interests that move into the landscape that might threaten these nature-based solutions or any of these initiatives that you guys are employing in the upper Mississippi River, for example. California is not going to be California forever. A lot of that ag is going to move into places that are more appropriate for that agriculture, including the Mississippi River Basin. So wondering how you guys are using, any of these initiatives, are using those sorts of scenarios or that type of scenario planning, those climate projections, in developing any of these projects. So you're not just addressing, say, a climate impact on society, but also climate impact on the solutions that you guys are designing yourselves. Does that make sense?
So for about 10 years or so, the Corps of Engineers has had guidance that has directed us to incorporate climate change into our active designs for restoration projects. And so that's something we've been factoring in terms of design. It also helps when you've got 35 years of building similar types of things to kind of bake that into the cake, so to speak. And so we primarily do that, as I said, the status and trends report, looking at all the flow data that we're seeing in the rainfall data, more water, more of the time. So what do we need to do when we're building an island to ensure that that island, that complex itself, is going to survive the first record flood that comes along 2 years after you build it, which seems to always happen. Incorporating that into the design so that that island continues to function the way that we intended. Related to forestry, when we do some of our forest restoration, we are in some certain cases we are dredging material from the river, which provides overwintering aquatic fishery habitat, placing it on existing islands to raise that elevation up so that we can account for that those higher water levels. So there's lots of different design techniques that we can use to account for that risk of climate change. Does that help?
Yeah.
Actually, I think compared to other countries like China and America, our country is really small. So actually, in the concept, we thinking about how to coexist with nature and human being. So that's the really big challenge for us. So actually, as you see on my presentation, actually many politicians really want to making development with ecological something, but really difficult to get both, right? Mm-hmm. So that is our challenge. So I always concerned about how to convincing the political men's, how to convincing public to enhance the ecological system. So that's my concern, and it's I don't know exactly what is your question, but these days my concern is this. Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to follow up a little bit more, part of that analysis that we do as part of our project design is we're required to develop future climate change scenarios for the project features. And so we'll look at a moderate scenario to a high scenario, and how does that project perform under those various scenarios? And that's what we'll use as our baseline, so that we know that we're covering our bases under various conditions.
But did it work? What I mean, actually, your expectation is right. What I mean, because in our project, it's also same problems. But I mean, actually, many scientists, engineers expect some effect from the climate change, but we don't know exactly, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah.
We're using scenarios based on the data available and models that we're doing the best we can to project a range of conditions in the future that may occur, and we design for the most resilient.
But actually, the problem is actually the scientists and also engineers has different view in the same issues. So.
Well, that's why we're not going to let you off the hot seat here, because you presented us this question behind you about the weirs, and it's two realities, it's two solutions. A solution has created another problem. So the question is, if there was a national referendum in South Korea about this project, how would they vote? What would you think the general public, if
this project?
Yeah. In terms of whether they would like to see algal rivers, or would they like to have flood prevention?
Actually, happy enough because of their party. What I mean, the party. The supporter is a kind of the positive party in government, and the other hand, they are supporting the Democratic Party. So depends on the politics, they thinking about that. They don't thinking about the scientific, and because there are many different views.
So this is a love-hate relationship. Depends every 2 years, you either love it or hate it. Is that right? Any other questions? Yep.
So I think everybody today, and including this panel, has talked about lessons learned and how important that is, especially in scaling up. And you've all talked about how you're monitoring projects and evaluating how it's going and using those lessons to further advance the project. That's sort of adaptive management, right? Nobody's mentioned that term per se, but that's adaptive management. And I'm wondering if there's sort of a more active adaptive management any of you are taking. In other words, are you looking at different hypotheses about what could work or what might work, and you're not quite sure, so you're out doing tree planting and maybe you're changing the density or species mix and you're trying something here and something different over there, or with the, the rock around the islands, are you trying different configurations, different sizes out in the field and testing them to then think about, okay, what really will work and how do we really scale this up in the long run? So are you purposely building in those types of research into the projects when you implement them?
Make it short, I think it's a continuous learning. And if we are not aware that it is a learning, then we can never grow. So, for example, we are now, we experimented with direct seeding since 3 years, and we found out that it is more economic, and it has good results. But no one really executed this method of restoration in this area, so it was quite new. And now we start to more and more with assisted natural regeneration. So it's all by learning from the mistakes, and trying new models, because as the climate crisis comes in, maybe drought, but also the rains. Normally it was a raining period from October to March, and this year the rain kept on going till May. But this whole impact on the seeds we need, the kind of trees we plant. So I think it's, once we have reached 30 years, by the way, in 30 years our project is completed, I hope with all your support. But if we would reach 30 years, this is how we must have learned. And already our learnings are being stored, of course, and other ministries have asked us, oh, could you also set up a biodiversity corridor along our river? Because it has been deforested even more than Araguaia. For example, the Rio San Francisco in Brazil, and some other great country in Africa also is asked. So I think there's no competition. I think it's learning and admitting that you make mistakes, and then sharing this knowledge for other rivers. Yes.
So the mussel habitat that I showed you was an example of that. That project in total was about $30 million. That mussel habitat that we put in was a couple $100,000. And so it was an intentional experiment to see, will we get the response that we think we might get if we do something a little bit different. Additionally, with a lot of our forest work, we've had 30 years to make a lot of mistakes. And some of that has to do with, and I don't know what others' experience with this is, but cultivating and developing a contracting community that can do this work consistently the way it needs to be done. Not every contractor with a bulldozer can go out and do some of this work that we ask them to do. And so we've learned, you probably wouldn't call it adaptive management, but we've learned how to write specifications and things into contracts that make sense to the contracting community so that we don't end up getting what we don't need. The other piece of our program, before adaptive management in the Corps was known as adaptive management, one of the things in our authorization was to do performance evaluation. And so we go back to our projects periodically with our sponsors who take over operations and maintenance, and we go out on site periodically with them, and we figure out, okay, what's been working well, what hasn't, and we make management adjustments. So we might not go physically build something new, but we make adjustments to how the project is operated over time so that we continue to get the benefits that we thought we were going to get.
One final question, anyone have?
I got one. So
You have 40, right?
I got a number. So, the finance piece has come up again and again, but we haven't really addressed what sustainable finance looks like. And I don't know, maybe Ben, this is for you because it's a bit outside of the realm of government funding. But what does it look like? Like, what is the ultimate goal here? What does sustainable finance look like? Because when you take funding or incentives away from something like a reforestation project like we've seen again and again, then people are just going to go back to what they were doing before, and they'll chop down those trees and they'll farm it because then they can get additional economic value off of that land. So just wondering, in this context, in the context of your project, you plant those trees, and then what does it look like past that?
That's a very good point of the forest code in Brazil. The element which needs to be preserved really needs to be preserved. You have the legal reserves and the permanent preservation areas. And whether you have Bolsonaro or not, these trees will remain. Okay, so it's amazing that whatever we plant, we have a guarantee, for sure with the permanent preservation areas, that these trees can never be touched again. So in this case, the investment from any sponsor, investor, philanthropy is okay. So many hectares is a guaranteed bringing back of life. I mean, one of our own sponsor partners came up like last week and said, actually, whatever we give today is a gift of life forever. And I think the fact that we can almost guarantee that, and that is not, to be honest, nothing strategic from our side, because that is Brazil, which has already this great environmental regulation in place. And for sure, it might be different in the US, it might be different in South Korea, but I think you have to take it country by country, how that works. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm
Okay.
Yeah.
Remember, with sustainable finance, it takes 33 years to count to $1 billion. So when you see billions raised up there, and you can't even count it. So I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank the speakers. We're 3/4 through the program. Thanks for staying with us.